everyone. Randy Lilson, Chief Marketing Officer at Conga, and today I am very pleased to be joined by Shiva Kannan, who is the Commercial CIO at GE Healthcare. And we are going to be talking about transforming the quote-to-cash process. So Shiva, let's start with this. GE Healthcare, complex business selling equipment, software, services, financing, and the like. You set out to transform the quote-to-cash process globally. What was the main business driver behind this, and what outcomes were you trying to achieve?
Thanks, Randy. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you and share our journey on this transformation. Like every big company, large company, we grew fast, and as we grew, we didn't necessarily focus on standardization and simplification. When we that started impacting our customer experience. Our lead times, our margins, we started getting into and looking at our processes. That's when we realized that the quote to cash or the quoting part of it is at the beginning part of the value chain, and that is something that we need to focus on. So that's how we got into it, and the drivers that we were looking for from this, and we have started seeing already, is one, simplification and standardization. We believe that we don't need 7 different ways of doing things. We can have one way from a process standpoint, and then the sophistication, the variation can be closer to the customer where it adds value. The second thing is the experience for our salespeople and our customers, right? We want to make sure that we are not putting a lot of stress on our customers through mistakes in our customer-facing documents and then having to do concessions later, and then all the resulting experience that comes from that. We want to get it first time right. And then the salesperson, we want them to be in front of the customer, spending the minimum amount of time doing admin work, spending time in the tools, and spending the maximum amount of time with the customers. And then if you take care of your employees and take care of your customers, then all of the business drivers, the business fundamentals will get stronger. The top line, we wanted that to go up, and then the profit margins as well. And we're starting to see that. Our average deal size is going up, and then our margins are going up as well. So those were, in order of priority, the 3 drivers that we were trying to go after.
So when you set out on this project, you guys had a very decentralized sort of product and geo structure in the way you guys operated. And I know one of your goals was to get more company-wide global standards. How'd you go about that, and what best practices would you recommend for others considering a similar change?
Great question, Randy. It wasn't easy. We made mistakes, and it was a trial and error process. Initially, we looked at this project as a replacement of our existing legacy platform. We, decided to go to a region and then start, getting the tool ready to replace the legacy tool over there. We took on a lot of debt, technical debt and process debt to hit a timeline. Then what we realized is when we were ready to deploy this across the rest of the world, it wasn't going to work. It didn't work for any of the others. So we bit the bullet and we started from scratch again. But this time around, we didn't run this as an IT project or a platform replacement project. We ran this as a business transformation project, which is what it is. So we got buy-in from the top leadership, from the regional leadership, from the product leadership. We made sure that we defined the problem statement of what we are trying to solve, and made sure that we clearly articulate what is in scope, what is out of scope. We had the KPIs also defined in terms of what we wanted to hit. And then we went about running a pilot in a different region this time around. We were a lot more open-minded about this. And then once we had a basic skeletal process in Conga, then we brought in reps from the other regions to make sure that this will work for them as well. Because our intent was to quickly deploy this in the first region, the pilot, get proof points, learnings, scale it up, and then quickly deploy this across the rest of the world. So that process really worked for us. We quickly went from our flow business. We deployed this in multiple regions. We gained confidence in the tool, gained confidence in the process, continued refining and fine tuning the process. And then we added on more and more product lines, the one with long lead times, and eventually our services business as well. The other learning was also, as you're deploying this, we can't take our eye away from performance, scalability, and experience, because that came back to bite us at different stages of the journey. So if I'd had a redo, I wouldn't, start off as an IT project. I would start this as a business transformation project. I would give enough stops along the way so that we harden the platform, learn from it, fine tune it, simplify it, and then continue the scaling process.
So underpinning all these processes, of course, is the data. What was your approach to standardizing your data to support the business transformation that you were driving?
Sure. And data is the foundation. It's a very critical part, right? So just for context, we had 26 CPQ or legacy CPQ platforms for just our equipment business, and an equal number for the lifecycle side, the services side as well. So our journey was to go from 26 to 1. And prior to that, we had confidence that we could do that because we consolidated 20 SFDC instances to 1. So we had one way of doing account management across the company. So our next logical step was to get to one CPQ. One of the critical things, foundational elements to your question, was data, right? And in these 26 CPQ systems, we had 26 different ways of representing products and offerings. We had price lists that were all over the place. We had, zero control on promotions. So that one was the first thing that we had to get in place. There were multiple ways of doing this. There was the way where, we get a global model, a product model, offering, and then we let the regions copy that and then make tweaks to that. The second one, which was a little more, call it rigorous, was to have one global offering across the world. So we had both models. We experimented with both. The flow business went with the one global model, and they had one central team that was deploying these global models across the world. The much more complex, long cycle diagnostic imaging business, they went with a global model, which was then copied by the regions, and then they tweaked it. So hindsight, after looking at both models now, I would recommend that we go with the global model, because it, one, allows a direct flow from the NPI introduction all the way into CPQ. The models are immediately activated in a few hours. When you want to do analytics in terms of which models are performing in which markets, and then cut out the long tail, you could do that. When you want to reduce the configurations that are sitting in supply chain and hence inventory and cash tied up, you can easily do that. So hindsight, I would recommend that we go with that.
So your business has evolved from an equipment provider to now selling software, services, financing, and the like. As you seek to offer a single unified image to your customers, a single franchise, what are the implications on that relative to the quote to cash process and the underlying systems and capabilities that you need in order to achieve that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that is exciting, because we are moving away from the original mandate of this project, the transformation. The original mandate was to have one CPQ platform, one quote to cash process for our equipment business. But as we have done this, and as the business has evolved, and as our customers are evolving, their needs are evolving, we are seeing more and more need for going in front of the customer as an overall GE Healthcare. So they are asking for multimodality or solutions offerings Increasingly, they also want to have services offerings tied to the equipment offering right up front. So more and more now we are offering point of sale services as an extended warranty right when we sell our equipment. And then we can also, if they want to get into a longer term contract, we can also provide a longer term services contract along with that. What this means for us, Randy, is it adds a lot more complexity, right? It means that now we need to bring together a product life cycle, a box-based business life cycle, and that process, along with a short cycle services product, along with a long cycle services product as well, and pretty soon a subscription, a software as a service offering as well. So this is exciting. It's challenging how to bring it all together. And the thing that we are also starting to see is we need to start focusing more and more on performance and scalability and experience. Because when you put in a lot in one transaction, it starts hitting the limit on the platform, right? So our Conga partners have been great working with us to start helping us in terms of improving the scalability of the platform. So I'm really looking forward to the latest offerings in terms of the next gen architecture that can help us get there. The other thing that also we have realized is we need to invest a lot more in the experience. It's not just the process, but it's also the experience. And the experience has to be centered around the persona that we are supporting. In this case, the persona is the salesperson, the field. To them, it can't look like they're moving from one country to the other where it's choppy. It needs to be one experience, and we need to make sure that we are enabling them and supporting them as they are supporting our customers. So all in all, a very exciting part of the journey. We don't have all the answers yet, but really looking forward to this one.
So we've talked about the process of proposing and quoting to a customer. Obviously, once you do that, you go into negotiating and executing an agreement with them. What have you found are the benefits of integrating those processes together to deliver a more unified quote-to-cash process overall?
It's huge, Randy, because today we have multiple teams working on this to get this in front of the customer and to get this to a point where we can start recognizing revenue and then eventually to cash. So once we present the budgetary quote in front of the customer, then we need to make sure that we get into the contract negotiations. And this is one where we want to make sure that the T's and C's are tied off. We have controllership in the works. Earlier, this was a very disconnected manual process that was sitting outside the tool. It was multiple workflows. It was in spreadsheets. It impacted the cycle time overall, and eventually the experience with the customers as well. Because when we finally did that, what we originally provided in the quote wasn't what eventually got into the final agreement. So that led to some tough moments with our customers, and eventually it impacted the business as well because it led to concessions and other things that you want to avoid. So now with us integrating that part of the workflow along with as you are creating the budgetary quote, you're doing this in parallel when possible. Second, the information flow between the two is seamless. It's sitting right within the tool. And third, all of the parties who are supposed to be involved with supporting the customer is all working at the same time in the same tool, right? So this has allowed us to reduce our cycle time immensely, make sure that we are compliant, and third, it's also helping the overall business as well by reducing concessions.
Shiva, thank you for your insights. Thank you for joining us. We invite you to learn more at Conga.com.